other people have said this, right? And I pretty much disagree, but I want to get your take on it.
Yeah.
People have told me and said, I've heard it in multiple creators saying this shit. They're saying that, women have always been promiscuous sluts like they are today. What's your take on that? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I personally don't agree with that. I think like we're at all-time highs for whoredom. And I just don't, I don't know. What's your take on that, sir?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So there's a confusion, I think, with people in the internet space of what do they mean by promiscuous sluts, right? Because in the one sense, our brains are wired to have sex, and the female brain is wired to be to a level promiscuous, right? They're not wired for monogamy, right? They're wired for, not that monogamy can't work or anything like that, but just the wiring and how we evolved was in polyamorous tribes. So they're used to, having more than one partner within their lifetime and seeking out, multiple partners. So that's been around for a while, but what gets neglected or ignored is the level that it used to happen at compared to now, the actual numbers, right? As someone in a polyamorous tribes were anywhere from a small tribe of 30 people, hunter gatherers, to maybe 70 people, and that included women, that included children, older people, whatever. So like not every person in the tribe was considered mateable. So you had maybe a small graduating class worth of people, okay, most of them not mating with each other because they're kids or elderly people that were available to each other. So a girl, in the promiscuous past of polyamory, a girl still had less than 10 partners,
Lifetime?
easily less. Lifetime, right? Easily
That's
less.
a saint
So
nowadays. That's a fucking
right.
saint.
Yeah, and now if you catch a girl with less than 10 partners today, yeah, right, it's like wife her up,
Let's go
like
to Harry
holy crap.
Winston, baby.
Yeah. And so that's what gets sort of neglected, or the lack of understanding. We went from an average of between like 7 and 9 partners. I mean, they say 8, but there's a little standard deviation there pre-internet to now. There's different studies saying different numbers, and I think they're afraid to really do a comprehensive study on it because it makes women look unfavorable and badly, unfortunately. But it's like mateable women, it seems like from the data I've looked at, and it's going to be a wide number, but the average now is between 20 and 50 before she hits 30 years old, you know so that's not even lifetime, that's before she hits 30. She's most average girls in the West who are following a normal dating paradigm have slept with, somewhere between, 20 guys or so to maybe 50 guys, right? And so even like in some of the data they got from, some of the notch count data, like they just shut it off before they even get to 20 because when they're looking at marriage success versus number of partners, they stop looking after like 16 or whatever it was. Like they just don't, because it's like the numbers are so high for divorce rates at that number. And
Mm.
so it's almost like why go to 30 when we know that, there's so much more of a probability of divorce and unhappiness and cheating. And that was the three markers: infidelity, reported unhappiness in relationships, and then of course the initiating and having divorce. So like they've proved their point after 16 notches. Well, and these are mattress studies and some some dating app studies and stuff, which, see, none of these are really great studies, but they're all sort of reporting different numbers between 20 and pushing towards the 50 number for girls. That's way different. So were girls always wired for promiscuity? Yeah, absolutely. But they didn't have the opportunity that they have today. Number one, in a global sexual marketplace with the internet. And number two, there were other social controls in place, right? There were always some social controls in place. And now those social controls have greatly been removed.
Hmm.
And so, or a girl can shirk or go around them, because if she's on the internet meeting up with a dude, or I having vacation sex over here, doing this thing over there, she conceals her behavior from future partners, and she conceals her behavior from her social circles that wouldn't approve, maybe, or would judge her for that stuff. And so, unfortunately, women, well, women are greatly influenced by the social environment, and
Yeah.
and how they look to the social environment to for confirmation as to whether they're making good or bad decisions. But if they can sort of work around that social environment, the exact thing that would place a control on their behavior and preserve their ability maybe to bond in a long-term relationship, well, that's been removed. So now you have a lot of girls who can't do that. And they've been running through a lot of notches. And it's just a reality. It's just a fact that we're in now. And we need more data. And we don't know. It's like we're in a big experiment. We don't know if a girl's been through 35 dudes. Is she done in the water, or is she good? Like, there is no assurance there. I have my own thoughts and ideas, but we need more research. So we're in
Yeah.
uncharted territory now. Yeah.
You know, I want to ask you this, right? So when a woman is like highly promiscuous, okay, um, what is the driving factor? Because I understand for men, we just want to go out and fuck as much pussy as possible.
Right.
Now, like, why do certain women, in your opinion, just get out there and get ran through? Like, what is this? Is it a psychological detriment? Is it something we're missing biologically? Are they truly programmed to be these turbo whores? It's kind of like psychotic, because
Yeah.
we as men want to fuck as much pussy as possible, but then when we
Right.
find a woman, we want to make sure that she hasn't been ran through.
Right.
And also, globally, women know, I think they know instinctively that being promiscuous equals not desired, because
Yeah.
they all hide it globally. You know, I've slept with girls from Mongolia, I've slept with girls from China, Korea, Vietnam. I've been to these countries, you know, Japan, Hawaii. I fucked a girl that was like partially native Hawaiian blood, which is like super rare. On all these
Yeah.
girls, they all have the same shame
Yeah.
of hiding their body count. So this does seem to be a modern phenomenon, but what is the incentive? Because and we all talk about this too, right? We all
Mm.
talk about like guys just think that these girls are getting ran through by chads, but I have gone through girls' phones and seen these, encyclopedias of fucking losers, and it's not like chads, it's not Tyrones, it's like a bunch of fucking weasel looking betas. I
Right.
mean, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a very good question. Let's see where to start with that one. Um,
So
well,
let's say
first of
let's start
all,
with what drives a woman to be promiscuous to the degree that a woman will sleep with 30 to 50 men before the age of 30 years old.
yeah. And so, like, well, first let's illustrate what that pattern looks like, because I think a lot of guys get, this conception that of, girls sleeping with a bunch of dudes is like, sleeping with three dudes in the same week, and you know what I mean? Just like being a total like that kind of a turbo whore. And it's like, she's going to a party, she just gets a train run on her, stuff like that. Like these are small percentages of people, but the average girl is doing mate switching and serial monogamous behavior a lot of the times. So you got to look at it like, so let's just illustrate this. Average girl has sex for the first time when she's 15 years old. All right. So then usually she has a huge oxytocin attachment to that guy. And then it usually, of course, doesn't work out because they're not adults and mature and all that stuff. And so she gets broken up from that. But now she's already had sex. And once she's flipped that driver, her reproductive system is telling her to have sex, to bang guys who would get her potentially pregnant, and to bang the best that she could find for genetic success. So that's your chads. Now, they're not always banging chads, of course, but that's at least what a reproductive system is telling her to do. And although, like, we are generally hornier as dudes throughout the entire month, women get, you know, almost that much, if not that much, during certain days of the month. And especially when they're younger and their hormones are going crazy, you know, got a lot of hormones, 15, 16, 18-year old, even 20-year olds, right? And so a girl during ovulation is spiked with hormones. She's horny. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
she's looking at dudes and that's it. I mean, that's she wants sex. And a girl who's had sex, even if she hasn't orgasmed, and in fact, not orgasming actually drives her to more sex. That's an interesting thing. The reason, you know, evolutionary reasoning for women having more difficulty orgasming is it pushes them to have more frequent sex during that ovulation period, which made them more likely to get pregnant. So think polyamory, right? She's not having sex with 10 dudes, but she might have sex with 3 dudes within a 10-day period of ovulation. And then
Mm.
maybe another dude for a negotiation in between. So maybe she's rotating between a couple partners.
I want to
But
add on
during
to
that,
that.
yeah, go
Sorry.
ahead.
Go finish the
Yeah.
state. Finish your thoughts.
No,
Sorry,
I
but
was
I
to
want to
say,
add to
but
that.
yeah, so like during that 10-day period, she's really horny and she's wanting to have frequent sex and even not orgasming, she hasn't quenched or had any satisfaction. So she's continuing to want to have sex. So there's that part of that drive. But I'll pause so you can make your point there, what you're gonna say.
So I've noticed as I have been sleeping around with all these hoes, and that that the girls that typically are the biggest hoes in my experience, these are girls who cannot orgasm, and I've noticed
Hmm.
that,
Yep.
and I've noticed as a trend,
Yeah.
more girls in America and westernized girls have trouble orgasming compared to girls over here in the East.
Mm.
I've noticed a great difference. Like, when I was dating Miss MLD, right?
Mm.
When we would have sex, she was having an orgasm every time within 4 minutes of sex. Now, I was her third partner ever, and I was the
Mm.
only foreign dude she's ever been with. So for her, she was just so, mentally healthy because that's where the orgasm starts up here for all
Right.
women, right? For guys, we could
Yeah,
have
of course.
every fucking disease in the world and we'll still come, you know. But women,
Right.
if they're not, if the upstairs is not, sorted,
Hmm.
you really have to like fucking jackhammer that pussy for 40 minutes to get one orgasm out of them. And
Hmm.
as a businessman, I don't have time for that, quite frankly. you know, but I've
Right.
noticed one of the girls I dated before, remember you were helping me with her last year, the
Yeah.
Chinese feminist chick. She had
Yeah.
never had an orgasm from,
Hmm.
penetration sex. And she had quite the resume of dicks under her belt. And she could only orgasm from oral stimulation, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And she had been like, one time I took some fucking MDMA and I was like off my tits and I fucked her for like an hour straight.
Yeah.
And no coming, nothing. And that
Mm.
was just like, hard MDMA, like dick, you know what I mean? And just couldn't. And at that point, I was like, this bitch is broken. This, like, we got to send this back to the factory in China and get it fixed. But I've noticed too that she would, in her past, she told me like she would have sex sometimes, 3 dudes in a week. And it must have been
Mhm,
during that ovulation window. And due to her
mhm.
not being able to orgasm, she just kept on going out there, getting fucked, getting pumped, getting dumped,
Yep.
and essentially ruining herself in the process.
Well, right. And so the thing is, for women to orgasm, I find this interesting is they need to be able to submerge themselves in the event,
Mm.
which means they can't have their mind elsewhere or to be thinking about like potential problems, threats, dangers, concerns, any sort of anxiety, stuff like that, can't really necessarily be there. So they have to be able to be submersed or immersed in this sexual event in order to orgasm. And I just find that interesting because women too, when they have sex with a dude, they are essentially making themselves vulnerable. Like a woman is
Mm.
vulnerable during the act of sex. She is being taken by a larger, stronger force that could, essentially hurt them if they wanted to, right? So like there's a level of being, open and trusting in a sexual experience or closed and not trusting, which is where they defend themselves. And we see this in game or pickup when a girl is open sexually, You know what I mean? She's open to more conversation and sexual banter maybe. When she closes, what happens? All the defenses come up, the anti-slut defense and all that kind of stuff, right? And so you can look at that model. It's like women are either sexually open, sexually closed in some sense when they're dealing with a guy, because they're always balancing safety and danger with sexual or reproductive needs. And a girl who's having, going out and having, casual sex all the time, she is holding, there's a sense of danger she has when she's doing it. And she's not able to feel free usually in the sexual experience to let that go. And to, having dominance over her and being able to overwhelm her with sensations, which is why like some training in BDSM and stuff does work well to break that seal for those girls who have difficulty. um it causes them to be overwhelmed with sensations, so they have nothing else to do but open up sexually. You know what I mean? That's like, that ends up being their only option. They end up having to submit. But yeah, this that nature of having to defend themselves, it causes them to not really receive the pleasure that they would want. Well, who are they gonna open up to? A guy they trust, right?
Yeah.
So having a bunch of random sex with guys they don't trust is leading to less, they don't have as good of sex. And this is where guys get like super, from a practical aspect, guys listening, they get super concerned about this. And it's like, well, how could I be the best sexual experience with her? Look, if you can open her up and she trusts you and and she's able to be immersed in the event, and then your sexual, skill is at least good enough, to be there for a duration of time and to recognize what she's, her sensations and stuff. And she has a bunch of orgasms with you. I mean, that's probably, that's a lot better than the short term, one night stand, slept with this guy after a music festival, bang this guy on vacation, all that bullshit.
Hmm.
It's the sex she's having with you if she is able to open herself up and trust you. And trust doesn't mean I love you. You're the greatest. I want to serve you. No, trust means that you're the dominant alpha person that she feels safe with. If you're able to be that guy, like the sexual experience, you can sort of supersede all of that other bull stuff, all of
Mm.
their other experiences, just from a practical standpoint. But yeah, no, the lack of orgasm, I mean, they may get to being able to have an orgasm, but it's like it's hard for them to let go and to feel safe. And then if they can feel, here's the thing, if they can feel safe, they are actually able to condition or move themselves into feelings of safety with multiple random sexual experiences and random guys. Well, now they've ruined the protective nature of their reproductive, health and success. So
Mm.
now how good is that person in now a long-term relationship when she could get horny for a dude, have sex with that guy, be open? And this is what you run into with women with some mental issues, right? Like your borderlines and stuff like that. Yeah, the reason why the sex is so good because she has no protective measures because she's, has a mental problem. And so she just opens herself up sexually to a stranger, like no big deal. But that has consequences too now, because now you're in a relationship. Where's the protective part of her reproductive success when she's supposed to be committed to a guy?
A
She's ruined that.
protective in the sense she will protect it from giving it to anybody.
Right. Well, because
Mm.
for so the act of sex is a riskier move on an evolutionary level for a woman. She could get pregnant with the wrong guy or get a disease more easily, but particularly getting pregnant with the wrong guy is an existential threat for a woman. And so, you know, there's a measures in place so that they don't get pregnant with the guy who's going to discard them and leave them in tow pregnant or with a kid and no resources, or the guy that is of lesser genetic reproductive value. There's protective measures there. That's the reason why they don't feel safe and can't orgasm, can't open up with a lot of these guys, is because of those protective measures. Well, if they defeat those, because we can do things with our brain. I mean, shit, I do that with clients all the time for productive reasons. We can sort of redirect our instincts and defeat some of these mechanisms, but it's not always productive to do that. If she
Mm.
defeats the mechanism of having that protective nature, well, then anytime she's horny, she's just gonna go fucking, I don't know, go have an orgasm on a homeless guy, right?
Right.
It'll in that will kill her ability to have the oxytocin vasopressin attachment to whoever she's having sex with, and it'll kill her ability to that proclivity to protect herself from having that sexual investment from other guys. So she's going to be useless in a relationship where a commitment is required.